Hello and welcome to the BritHick episode 11 with me, Connor, and Aaron.
It's episode 12.
Oh, good. Yeah, it is episode 12. My turn to get the numbers wrong this week. And I had a crack at it twice because I nearly said the BritSick, just for full disclosure. So how are you doing today, Aaron?
I am sick today.
The BritSick. There we go.
Yeah, and was ill yesterday as well for different things, which isn't the greatest, especially as it's so nice and sunny. And I can't be too far away from a toilet at the moment, which is always fun. So I have not been enjoying the sun in the garden as much as I would like to. But Formula One's at Silverstone, which isn't too far away from here. Obviously, there's no people around, which makes it weird, because normally where I am, there'd be an influx of business and people and stuff going on because of it.
Yeah.
And that's just not happening. So yeah, it's a bit weird. So I watched it on the telly, even though obviously the track's like 8 miles away from where I am at the moment. Because they have it on the TV for this weekend, whereas because of the stupid deals that they have, it's not normally on terrestrial television. You have to pay dedicated fees for Formula One,
right?
Which I don't do. So it was good to actually watch all of the qualifying for a change. Other than that, not much. Went out for food on Wednesday for the first time, which was all right. It wasn't too much of a faff for the staff and stuff, I don't think.
Oh,
not
good.
At the place that I ended up at anyway. Food was nice. Everyone was pretty kind of cordial and pleasant and everything, so it was good. It wasn't a chain, which is something that I'm making an endeavour to avoid. I want to kind of support small businesses rather than going to a chain.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, no, that was nice. I haven't done a great deal other than that. We had practice on Tuesday. You got to try your new pedal.
Oh, yes.
And stuff, which sounded good. I don't know if you want to talk about the pedal and the dealings that you had with it. I can't remember if we actually discussed it before.
No, we didn't actually. So, yeah, just to get to the point of it, obviously something we've discussed previously, and anyone who knows us and knows our band, the guitar tone's it's centered around the HM2 kind of sound. It's a bit of a different flavour. But since we've started, both of us have gone through kind of various iterations of the HM2 pedal. So we've both had the Behringer one, and I've had a Japanese and a Taiwanese HM2, Boss of HM2 at various points. I think you went straight into the left-hand raft, didn't you?
So, no, I had a Behringer one.
That's what I mean, after... Yeah, from that...
Yeah. Before Casket Feeder started, I had a Taiwanese HM2, which I think ended up... You had it for a while.
Didn't Lewis buy it off you? Then I bought it off of Lewis.
Yeah, so I had it. I didn't have a use for it at the time. Sold it to Lewis. Then Lewis, I think, sold it to you, and then you've sold it on. But I had that before. Then I got the Behringer one. Then I got the... Yeah, so I got the left-hand RAF and used that. Most of the changes that I had was preamps more than the pedal itself. And then I switched from the left-hand RAF to the Evil Ned from Abominable Electronics.
Yeah.
So, yeah, most of my fiddling around was more different preamps than the pedals themselves. And then after we recorded the album, we made a conscious decision to use wet-dry blends rather than having the HM2 being on 100%. So you bought a blend pedal and I bought the Evil Ned. And I guess one thing that we both did that's a bit different is that we all ran overdrives before the HM2 pedals or tube screamers or whatever else.
Yeah.
To try and tighten it up a bit. Whereas for me anyway, with the Evil Ned, I don't have to do that anymore because it's an overdrive pedal with a HM2 EQ rather than it being a distortion pedal that I'm trying to tighten up. But yeah, so obviously we were going down the route of actually reducing how HM2 dependent everything was, and then you bought a new pedal this week.
Yeah, so after when I switched from the Boss, I had a Lone Wolf Audio Dictator for a while, which is essentially a left-hand RAF with a bit like a stripped down version with like internal trim pots. It doesn't have some of the features, and that done me well for about a year and a bit, maybe like a year and a half. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where, following your lead, like wanting to downsize the rig just for, convenience, and actually just stripping it down to the essentials, getting rid of the faff. So I found, like, obviously through, I think it was like the Pedal Wars of Doom group where someone had posted about it. It was like Inverted Cross Audio. So he's a small builder based in Spain. A guy named Ben, absolutely top guy to deal with. Does a few iterations of like HM2 circuit, and I sent him a message because the first version that he done, which is the most like feature laden one, they'd stopped building it with a blend control, and I messaged him on the off chance I could get a custom one done, and he happened to have one board left with that layout. Got it done, like built. He does custom etching as well as a free thing, so you can have whatever you want etched onto the pedal. So I had our album artwork done, and the whole turnaround time between me contacting him and then the pedal arriving to me was like 9 days. That's including 2 weekends, so essentially 5 working days. That's to be built and posted over from Spain. Communication was like top notch all the way through, and the price is insane. It cost me like £120 for the conversion turnout to have it built and shipped, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, like, people are selling HM2s for that much.
Yeah, like I saw one the other day for like 180 quid. It's just ridiculous. They're good pedals, but it's just, I guess it's obviously the market demand's gone up and it's something that's not built anymore. But it's just daft to me.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Boss are ever actually going to turn around and do a Wazza HM2.
Yeah,
people have been asking since they launched the Wazza line when they were doing reissues of old pedals and stuff. So, but you see people commenting it on all their social media posts, but at the same time, it's like, well, are you going to do it or not?
Yeah.
So,
I guess it's a kind of thing as well, like how, I guess obviously like we see a lot of people saying about it and stuff. I guess it could have circles are in and whatever. But then I guess on a broader sense, like how many people within the market as a whole actually want one? And
well, there's two things, isn't there? There's people like us, or people that want to do the Entomb Dismember thing. But there's also the people that want to have one for completeness if they're, for example, doing stuff like David Gilmour, because he used one in the 80s.
Yeah.
And goth bands like, is it My Bloody Valentine?
Oh, like that shoegazy kind of sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they were using them as well. So there's kind of like different things. Obviously, because of what we listen to, we know it predominantly is have everything on 10, although we personally have never had everything on 10, but that's kind of where a lot of it comes from our kind of thing. But yeah, obviously it's not viable at the moment, or maybe they just don't have the components that they need.
Yeah, maybe. And then also maybe they just think, because there are so many builders doing variations of it now, maybe they just don't see it as a viable thing because there's so many alternatives. Like, if don't get me wrong, like I loved it when I had it, but if they put a Waza one out, I wouldn't see the need to get one because of what I've got now. Like it's a strange one, isn't it? Like demand and stuff. But yeah, this build is called a chainsaw. Like he calls it a chainsaw. It's hands down like the best variant that I've owned and played for. It's just ridiculous. It sounds like a paving slab.
Yeah, it did sound really good. Like I would debate getting one if I wasn't quite invested in having the evil Neds, because they do the two things that I need on a small board in a mini pedal size, and he doesn't do any mini pedals at all. So yeah, no, it sounded really good. But yeah, like if you want custom made pedals, I think he does like delays and reverbs and stuff as well, doesn't he?
There's a few interesting things. Like I just recommend any guitar players or anyone who wants pedals, check him out online. It's Inverted Cross Audio, and I think he commissions builds as well. Like if you've got a particular idea, like I'm pretty sure I've got this right. Like the rat saw that he does, which is it's essentially a rat with a HM2 EQ stack in it. That was originally a customer commission that he's now made into like standard pedal that he builds. But yeah, like the options there and just the build quality and the presentation, like in terms of the laser etching and stuff, like for the price, it's mental. Like I'd happily pay like I'd paid like 120 quid, like 200 quid, you know.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm assuming that over time, when Ben gets bigger and the demand possibly gets higher, that maybe the prices do go up.
Yeah, get in early. That's
yeah, for the time being. Because I think the price that you paid for yours is kind of the price that I paid for my Evil Neds.
Yeah.
Because I got done on customs and all kinds of crap because they were being shipped from America.
Yeah.
I think they were $125 each, but then you add the shipping and the customs charges, so they probably cost £120 each.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, it's doing what you had on your board before was like three pedals. Like the mini pedal was doing for me all three without too much issue.
Yeah,
it has the EQ circuit on a wet dry that I don't have to mess with. It's just set to blending in HM2 and an overdrive circuit in it as well. It's not as obvious that it's a HM2 as the inverted crosses, but that's because it's not a clone. It's just the EQ stack on something else.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I was after anyway, so.
And then to take it from multiple pedals to one pedal, I was jamming with Matt and Graham earlier on today.
Yeah.
In a project we're doing together. So I'm playing bass in that. And it's kind of like, I say it's like Stoner Doom, but it's a kind of like psychedelic kind of sound. So it's a bit like Uncle Acid and like Sabbath, and some like Electric Wizard kind of bits in there. But that's good fun. Like we've got like 6 tracks done now.
Oh, cool.
So Matt's written like 8 songs, but we've got 6 done like as a band.
Yeah.
But it was bloody muggy today.
Yeah, I can imagine it not being the most pleasant time to be in a practice room where you can't have the air conditioning on.
No, yeah, so classic Grebo instinct. Oh, the sun's out, let's go in a small, airless, windowless room and play music for 4 hours.
Yeah, I was going to message everyone yesterday to see if anyone was about, but it was just like, it's too, and it started raining as well. It was just like, oh no.
Yeah, it went a bit wonky, didn't it, yesterday?
Yeah.
And then I mean, aside from that, really, it's been the usual. Been doing more running. I'm going to do that again tonight. It's just waiting for it to cool down a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's going well. And then that's to be honest, it's kind of business as usual, really. Obviously, like work, band. trying not to buy pointless things.
Yeah, we said about that last week, is that I'm just holding back until I move before I buy anything. So it's my impulse buying is being curtailed by that at the moment, because I keep looking at, it's nothing exciting, it's things like chairs.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to buy chairs. It's like, well, don't buy them, because you're going to have them, set them up, and then 2 weeks later, or however long it's going to be before I move in, you're going to have to get it all and move it, so you might as well wait. So I'm just trying to slim everything down as much as I can beforehand.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did it before the podcast last week or after, but I sold like my other Apple computers.
Oh, it was after, yeah.
So got some money from getting rid of the stuff that I don't use anymore as part of doing the whole moving thing, and with the intention of buying a Mac Mini down the line.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I did that as well, but that was last weekend, so it was quite a while ago. Yeah, that's me for this week, pretty much.
So I guess we should get into the meat of it then.
Yeah, what did we decide on?
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only the BritHick. We decided on Warhammer this week.
Right, okay. So going full nerd.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about something that neither of us have actually played a game of in 20 years.
Yeah, maybe like, how old am I now? I'm 29 now. So maybe like 15 years for me.
Yeah. So I checked. The last time that I remember playing properly was the Armageddon campaign that they had in the shops.
Okay.
And that codex came out in 2000.
Wow.
So I don't know when 4th edition came out, because I didn't. Whenever 4th edition was launched, I stopped playing, I think.
Right.
Let me find out when 4th edition. When was it launched? Such a difficult thing to find a definitive date on for some reason. 2004, so I'm guessing it must have been 2003 that I stopped.
Right, okay.
So I started playing in primary school, which is way too early to understand what's actually going on.
Yeah, it's a complex game.
So I would have been 1998, 1999, something like that. And then so I played it for 5 years, and then stopped because the models are expensive, and to be honest, I don't like painting. So like, I liked playing it, but I would have rathered that I just had used someone else's models to do it. Like, I don't find any enjoyment in the painting part of it.
Yeah.
Also, at the time, I had like a big narrative behind what I was playing.
Right, okay.
Which didn't match up with the lore of it.
Right.
It does now, stupidly. But I had Space Marines, as everyone has bloody Space Marines. Except I had Space Marines that were still fighting for the Imperium, but were suffering from possession due to being too close to the Eye of Terror. So they were good guys, but were being chased by good guys as well as bad guys.
Right.
But then whenever I bought them to do games at the shop, it was like, oh, you can't have that.
Right, yeah.
Whereas now it's kind of like, well, if you, as far as I'm aware anyway, they will say if you can kind of explain the narrative behind it, then you're all right, kind of thing. But yeah, like in the time that I've stopped playing, the actual kind of narrative part of the universe is just like blown up massively.
Yeah.
Like, it's so incredibly detailed since the early 2000s. It's pretty mental.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I got into it. It was later than you. I would have been I think it was about maybe 11 or 12, so it would have been like 2001, 2002. And yeah, I remember it took quite a while to get my head around the rules, actually like playing like matches or like battles, however you want to call it. But yeah, I had one of my really good school friends like, at the time. Like he was into it, and he introduced me to it and stuff. And he actually gave me a load of figures.
Right. Okay.
So we had a load of the old style orcs, like the one where they had like the pointed helmets and stuff like that. Before they were like more kind of like junkyard like aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it was 40k. He gave me loads of them and like grots and stuff, like kind of like a small army's worth, really. And like helped me paint them and stuff. Like I was shit at painting at the time. But yeah, I kind of got into it through that, like through fun. And we used to go to like Games Workshop on like Sundays and do like the sessions and like learn the rules and stuff. And I mean, it's really people kind of look down their noses at it, you know, and like, oh, it's really nerdy. And yeah, it is nerdy, but I'm a nerd about a lot of things, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I remember the people were always like really, really welcoming and always really nice. You know, everyone was kind of welcomed into it. It wasn't like you have to be part of this special club, you know. And that was, you know, as a kid, that's a really cool thing, you know, that you were kind of like, you can take part in this stuff and there's no pretense around it and whatever. Like, I'm sure there probably is in some corners of it, like you get with anything. But on the whole, I think the community was like, from what I remember, they were always really friendly. Like, there's more experienced people and stuff, but it was you never felt like you weren't welcome or, you know, you were being patronised or anything like that.
Yeah. It's one of the, like, you have to think that they have, I don't know if it's still the same. I haven't been into a shop for a very long time. But it used to be they had a dedicated table in every store that was for painting.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be that you bought them there on the day. You could bring in your models and have a lesson with someone about painting or putting them together or whatever else. They'd have like little workshops and stuff, which I can't think of many other places that would do that for free.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not for free per se because the models themselves cost an arm and a leg, but you know what I mean. Like the fact that you could go into the shop and you can learn how to paint for essentially free.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, yeah, I think there's like, I'm trying to remember. See, it's quite a while ago now. But I'm sure there was like certain evenings of a week where it'd be like painting and stuff like that, and then certain evenings they'd run some other kind of like activity or whatever, you know. I remember Sundays it was like you'd learn, like if you were like a new player, you could go and like learn the rules of the game and stuff. Because that's how we kind of like, that's what we were kind of like first doing. And like it's, to be honest, like in terms of actually playing it, probably only like a couple of years that I did it for, if that. I was never particularly good at it. But again, a lot of it was just like, it's a lot to understand within the rules and like, you know, the points constraints of like certain armies and this, that, and the other, and that kind of element of it. But then what you've mentioned, it's not a cheap hobby either.
No, not at all.
Especially when you're a kid with no income because you are a child.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. I was never very good at playing it. I was let's just move everything forward and shoot.
Yeah.
That's basically what I did, and very rarely won because there was no tactical knowledge going on with what I was doing at all. But part and parcel of it, I guess. Like, but I'm trying to think of like why I stopped, and I think it was just because the rules had changed.
Right.
Because 4th edition came out, and then I was kind of at that point where I was doing music more, and I think as well there's other things that I had bought models for they had stopped like doing, and it annoyed me. So Battlefleet Gothic I had bought, and Inquisitor. I couldn't even play Inquisitor in the shop because I wasn't old enough to play it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Inquisitor was like a full-blown, really in-depth role-play game.
Yeah.
Because you only actually had 5 models.
I remember like Mordheim was like that.
Yeah, and Inquisitor, the scale of the models was bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that was completely different. Because that was like a Dungeons and Dragons style. I want to run over here.
Yeah.
Roll a dice to see if you make it, kind of thing, and see how far you can go.
Okay.
And then you had, if you were shot in your arm, it meant that you couldn't use the weapon in that hand or whatever else.
Yeah.
So it was like really in depth. And basically they said it was I can't remember if it was a 16 plus or an 18 plus.
Right.
To play it in the shop kind of deal.
Yeah.
Which was annoying, obviously, because I wasn't that age at that time. So yeah, and then they pulled support for Inquisitor as well, and Battlefleet Gothic. So it was just like, I've got all these models that I can't really use anymore. Although they did it for Warhammer Fantasy as well. There's people with entire armies worth of stuff that they can't use because that game doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's a bit of a kick in the balls, that. Because it's a big investment of time and money, like building those armies up, and like, but if people like paint them up to like a crazy standard and stuff, it's a big undertaking.
Yeah, like my dad never played it, but he painted some models.
Yeah,
because that's more what he did growing up. Like he would build and paint planes to fly.
Yeah,
and things like that. So he would spend like 8 to 10 hours on a single model, like it not being a special character or anything. We're talking just like a general troop model, to a kind of standard where you would put it in for like the painting awards and all that stuff that they did. But yeah, like the model side of it doesn't really interest me anymore. Like I've seen how good they look now compared to what it was in the early 2000s. Like they don't use metal anymore, which is interesting because when I went to Warhammer World, that was the main thing that we saw was them casting the metal models in the silicon casts that they had, and they had like the liquid metal. Can't remember what metal they're made out of now. I think it was like pewter or something.
Something like that.
And how they did it and everything. And it's interesting that they don't do any of that anymore. That doesn't exist, that part of the process. Like if they can, the older ones are resin if they were metal, and then all of the new ones are plastic, regardless of what kind of thing it is. And the details like gone through the roof, which is obviously good that they're progressing and everything with what they're doing. However, that part of it doesn't really interest me anymore.
No,
it's just the lore of it, which is kind of the same as if someone says, "Oh, I'm really into Marvel." I guess like you automatically know that they're in it for the lore. If you say you're into Warhammer, they think that you're into the models. It's like, no, I don't really care about any of that. It's the the absolute fuckery that is the 40k universe, because there isn't anything going in regards to science fiction that is as fucked as 40k.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that obviously not as it wasn't like a long term, like it was a relatively short thing that I was into, but I think that was the thing that kind of grabbed me the most about it was the lore of it.
Yeah,
It's so kind of like want of a better word, it's very like gripping, you know, like kind of this dystopian nightmare of the future, you know. But it's every
there's nothing good.
No,
like, when
literally.
I said the good, I was like the good guys and the bad guys. It's like there's no good guys. Like the humanity is not good. They're a religious, zealous, xenophobic cult.
Yeah.
Basically, which is the opposite of the person that they're worshipping wanted, which is the divine irony about the whole thing. Is that the Horus heresy that ripped the whole thing apart started because the Emperor didn't want to be worshipped, and one of the Primarchs, who is one of his sons, worshipped him. The Emperor chastised him so badly that he destroyed his son's home city. Basically killed like billions of people as a punishment, and then he betrayed him. And now everyone follows the person that betrayed him's opinion. So yeah, it's just like all you have to like look through kind of, and there was none. But then there was none of that in when we were actually playing it. There was you knew about the Horus heresy because they had to explain why there were Chaos Space Marines. But it was Horus betrayed him and half the Primarchs betrayed him. Whereas now I think it's like in the region of nearly 100 books worth of material.
Bloody hell.
Like just over this one period in time. And it's weird because if you actually look into the like how long the Horus heresy took place, I think it was like 25 years tops of the whole thing. But that was, if you're looking at where they are in 40k, it's now gone past the 40,000s. It's now 41,000. Blah 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 blah. So now they're in the 42nd millennium.
Right. Okay.
So it was 11,000 years ago that this stuff happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the other things as well. I can't think of many sci-fi universes that are that far in the future.
No.
Because there's things that they're talking about in their ancient history that are still like the year 20,000. So it's like just so ridiculously far in the future that it kind of makes no sense.
No, yeah.
Like there's things in there that they talk about that the humans that they were rediscovering beforehand were there 10, 12,000 years before they rediscovered them, and the reason that they couldn't get them anymore was because warp travel was impossible, and there was an uprising of robots created by humans, like a kind of Skynet style uprising.
Yeah.
That was a war that lasted for like hundreds of years. And that happened 25,000 years before the current where they are in the universe at that point in time. But it's never explicitly said. The only way that you know about things like that is when it's said in the retrospective, oh, this happened 25,000 years ago. And one of the things as well is that obviously people get obsessed with like canon, like, oh, what's canon and what's not canon. Whereas with this, they don't explicitly retcon things. They just kind of go with, oh, it was misinformation portrayed in the universe.
Right.
Because it's a galaxy-wide thing. People are going to be saying different things about stuff that happens. So instead of them saying, oh, we made a mistake, we're going to withdraw it and then like change it, it's, oh, well, that could have happened, but this is the more reliable source, which is something else as well that you don't really see. But yeah, it's one of those things as well where like nothing is sugar coated so much. I mean, Games Workshop, in the gap before I started getting back into so I started getting back into the kind of stories and the lore side of it 2016, 17, something like that. But before that, they'd made a load of like really dodgy business decisions, like trying to trademark names for things.
Oh, okay.
That weren't really things that they should have trademarked, and like the races are different names and stuff now because they couldn't trademark names, so they've changed. So the Imperial Guard aren't really called the Imperial Guard anymore; they're called the Astra Militarum because they can trademark that name.
Right.
The Eldar are called the Eldari because they can trademark it. Dark Eldar are now called Drukari because they can trademark it. It's just like all these things that they've just, because they couldn't trademark these names, they've Sisters of Battle aren't called Sisters of Battle, they're called Adeptus Sororitas. Like, they've made up all these things so that they can trademark them, so that they can keep them under the banner.
Right. Okay.
Of the company as a whole. They kind of went on a bit of a Gibson thing with like giving out like cease and desists to companies. Yeah, wow. To companies that were making similar models and things like that.
Yeah, wasn't aware of like any of this.
So, and the fan backlash was bad, and I think they realised that they had screwed up because since I started getting into it, that was already when people were saying, "Oh, I think they've hired new social media. Like the way that they're going is different. Like there's been a change somewhere. Okay. They've realised that they've screwed up."
Yeah.
So on the social media side of things, I think it's been more open. I think before it was very keep everything away from the fans essentially, and only when we're ready to give you what it is, then you'll get it, kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't stop people complaining. People are going to complain all the time.
Oh yeah, like, you can give people £1,000, they'll complain there's no coins there.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things I kind of get, like Space Marines aren't Space Marines anymore. Like they're in the process of being phased out and being upgraded to a different thing.
That seems a bit weird. Like even as someone who's not touched it for years, it's like that's quite a core element.
Yeah. So, and the way that they've done it in regards to laws, people have complained about it and stuff because it kind of flies in the face of things that were previously established.
Okay.
One of the previously as well, when we were playing it, all of the Primarchs were dead. Like there weren't any around. They had been killed in mysterious circumstances. Well, I think two Chaos Primarchs have models, and one like Imperial Primarch has a model because they've come back.
Okay.
Chaos ones is because they've become demons essentially.
Right.
They haven't been possessed. They got elevated to demonhood. And yeah, Roberto Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, which everyone pisses on anyway because there was a very long period of time where everything that came out was painted in Ultramarine colours. Is back as well for various reasons. There are several books that explain why he's back. In stasis. He was in stasis. He got stabbed with a demonic sword by Fulgrim, who's a demon Primarch. And they put him in stasis before he died. He died in the hope that they could reverse it. And then, yeah, things happened. Someone managed to do something so that it won't kill him anymore. So yeah, he's back.
They've just done a big Emperor Palpatine there.
Yeah.
Why is he back? That doesn't matter. It's cool.
I mean, they've explained why, but the precursor to that is that the person that saves him is also called Belisarius Cool. Who there's a faction called Adeptus Mechanicus, which never had models when we were playing it before.
Right.
But it's the people that were on Mars that make all of the vehicles and everything.
Oh, okay.
And they've got their own thing now, and he's one of them basically. And apparently, this is where it all goes into like the weird, oh, this thing happened a very long time ago, but we just never told you about it kind of thing. Apparently, Rabute Gilliman, who's the guy that this guy's Cool has just resurrected, he told him that he needed to come up with a new, better process for a Space Marine. And he did. It took him 10,000 years, but he did it. And he made... bearing in mind that in the text previously, that the original Space Marines were meant to be the pinnacle of the Emperor's like genetic tampering, meant to be the peak of what he could do. So a lot of people are like, but you've done better than what the Emperor did. How have you managed this kind of thing? Which is where people kind of get a bit salty about it.
Yeah.
I understand why they've done it. There's a few different things. They needed to rescale the models because the old Space Marines were always really squat and they weren't the right height compared to other models.
Yeah, because they're meant to be massive, aren't they?
It changes. This is the weird thing. When we played it, they were meant to be 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it became 8 foot tall at one point. And now I think they're meant to be 9 foot tall.
Fucking hell.
So it's just like I still stick with that they're 7 foot tall. And then these new ones are 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
That's in my head. That's how it works. So yeah, basically, instead of just them making new versions of the same models, they've gone, okay, there are these new, better, improved ones. They've got different weapons and stuff, and these will be the new rescaled models of them, which people have kind of kicked off about. But I think one of the things that people said was they didn't feel like Gothic,
right?
Because there's the whole thing with like, oh, they've got a church on tracks, and it's all very Gothic in regards to like the robes and kind of incense burners and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The first lot of stuff that they released, it didn't have any of that. It was all very like straight up tactical armor looking stuff.
Okay.
But they've just launched 9th edition, so that's how long ago it was that we played it. We played 3rd edition. They've now just launching 9th edition.
Jeez.
And they've just released a load of stuff where people have gone almost universally, yeah, if you'd released this to start with, there probably wouldn't have been such a backlash about them, kind of thing. But you can't really do much about it. Like, that's just how it's been done. But yeah, like, I've kind of lost my train of thought. I fell into a pit of talking about why they've ended up making it so that there's all these new models. But again, that means that people with the old models get stiffed on because they're being phased out over time. So, although on the other hand, if you had orcs in 3rd edition, they're the same models now that they were then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had. Like, obviously, because originally I had the old ones that I got given.
You had 2nd edition ones, and then
I bought like the 3rd edition.
Yeah, the troop choices for orcs is still the same kit from 2000 or whenever the kit first came out.
I literally
same with Eldar.
Like, I literally stuck with them because I thought they looked cool, and then it's like, oh, they're really bad at shooting. I was like, brilliant.
Well, with orcs, it depends how you roll normally.
Yeah.
Like, they shoot a lot of stuff, but they're just kind of
haphazard,
willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if it was still the same. If it was the same in 3rd edition, but there's a thing where if they think about something strongly enough, it happens.
Yeah, no, that does ring a bell. I can't remember what they called it, but yeah.
They're just inherent. They're not actually psychic, but if in a group mentality, if they all think something, it will happen.
Yeah.
Which is why if they paint things red, they go faster. It's also why Commissar Yarrick hasn't died. He's become a deity almost in the orc psyche,
Right.
like in Armageddon. So because they think of him as this otherworldly, godly person that doesn't die, he doesn't die because they think, because of the amount of orcs that think that he survives things that should have killed him, basically.
Play themselves.
Yeah.
Ha!
Yeah. But they don't understand. They don't understand that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Because it's a nascent ability. It's not something that they physically learn or know about. It's just there in their DNA or whatever you want to call it. Bearing in mind that they're a fungus.
Yeah.
They're not an animal per se. But yeah, there's a lot more kind of backstory for everything, which you would probably expect, because if you think about it, in the time, it's 2020 now, started playing in 2003, 2004, and the game itself started in like 1990.
Yeah.
It's 14 years and then another 16 years afterwards. Yeah, I think one of the things as well that kind of draws me to it more than other things when I was trying to explain to someone is their concept of faster than light travel is like the worst thing ever.
Right.
Which is essentially the Event Horizon equivalent. That to get from one place to another one, you bore a hole in both places and like fold time to get to it. But you have to go through the literal embodiment of hell to get to it. Which is chaos.
Yeah.
Like where all the demons and everything are is the Immaterium, which is what you have to travel through to go to do faster than light travel, and it's the only way to do it.
Right.
Apart from the web way, which is Eldar stuff. But yeah, so that's the only way they can do it, and if you do it without special stuff put in place called a Geller field, which is basically just a shield to stop demons from getting into your shit, you end up with what happens on the Event Horizon, supposedly.
Not a good time for anyone involved.
No, well, that's why a lot of people are like, oh, you could kind of say that this was like an unofficial Warhammer style film because the way that the faster than light travel works is very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you end up with, there's like stories and stuff that I've read of, I can't remember what they're called, Demon Kubolba, which I think is women that have been abducted, partially possessed by a demon, and then they are stretched out, like their wombs are stretched out, so that they can gestate fully grown Chaos Space Marines.
That's mental. Who's coming up with this?
Yeah.
Look, fucking hell. I thought that was going to be like, oh, they're partially possessed and like impregnated with a demon. No, I wasn't. I didn't see it going there.
No, it's like fully stretched out
Christ.
with like 7 foot tall, fully grown men being birthed inside them.
Mad.
I can't remember the exact things in it, but yeah, there's things like that and different forms of cloning and things to like with possession and things like that. So, and like I said, there's no good guy.
No.
Some people would say that potentially the Tau, but people don't particularly like the Tau. And also, there's some shady shenanigans with the fact that their ruling class seems to control everyone by nascent psychic powers and manipulation.
Right.
Rather than it being everyone doing things of their own free will, it is somewhat of subconscious slavery to them.
It's about the it's all about Tyranids, mate, and Necrons. You know where you are with them.
So this
just
is
want to destroy
thing.
everything.
Well, this is the weird thing. Like Necron have had like what they're meant to do has changed.
Oh right.
Twice.
I'm gonna pull them up online.
Well, this is the thing. They're the second half of the 9th edition box. So Necrons are the big bad for the current upcoming edition. So yeah, previously when they were first launched, it was just like, oh, they were in tombs on various worlds and they get woken up and then they kill people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it was. And now there's like a big backstory about them being deceived by the Satan, and then they rose up against the Satan and destroyed them and turned them into shards, which they can use as weapons. And not all of them are mindless anymore.
Right.
So you have the kind of the troops are all mindless automata, but the kind of your captains, lieutenants, or whatever warlords have personalities. And like their leader apparently went out of the galaxy for 10,000 years and has come back. And supposedly it's because the Tyranids are gonna destroy everything, and the Necrons' main thing now is not to destroy everything, it's to find a way to get them back into living bodies rather than being mechanical.
Right, okay.
And obviously if the Tyranids eat everything that lives, there's not going to be much hope for them, really.
Yeah.
Tyranids are another one that haven't had like a new model in a very long time.
They like, if I kind of pondered like, it's never something I'd ever like play again because it's a lot of time and whatever. And I'm just not that fussed. But I did kind of toy with just buying some because I actually I really got into the painting side of it. I got like pretty decent standards. And I kind of like a few years ago I thought about buying some just to paint, and it probably would be like Tyranids just because of the aesthetic of him.
The thing is with Tyranids is that you have to paint loads of them.
Yeah, there's a shit ton. Like I was just thinking of getting some of the big models.
Yeah.
Like, because I just have them on display, like kind of thing. It's just something fun. But again, it's like, it's a lot of money to spend on something just to do as a lark.
Yeah.
You know.
That's one of the things as well. I've just thought that another faction that's been created that wasn't around is called Imperial Knights. And they're just all this big.
How big are they?
They're all like 6 inches tall.
What the fuck? Like
there's nothing else. That's what you play as. You get about your entire army is about like 6 models.
Let's have a look. No.
But they're like little titans.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's mental actually.
But that's what you play as. If you play as them, that's what you get.
That's sick. Ah. Yeah, there's none of it. Like, there's none of this. Like, obviously, like long time saying loads of stuff's been changed and that. But yeah, there's nothing crazy like this back when I was playing it.
Well, they couldn't do it, I don't think. Like, if you think about the size of the plastic models that they had, there was none like that. I think they were just making the bigger Tyranid plastic models before I stopped playing. And those were the biggest ones that they had ever done in regards to a plastic kit.
Yeah, definitely. God, these are nuts.
Because the stuff that I've got still like metal dreadnoughts and stuff, and they haven't been metal for a long time.
Do you know why they stopped doing the metal stuff? Was it like a particular reason?
The fact that you could probably kill someone with them.
Yeah, to be fair, I had a couple of like killer cans and that Orc War Boss, and they were just like fucking paperweights.
Yeah. I would hazard weight, danger, and the fact that they fell apart.
Yeah, like the gluing stuff after a while, because it just dries out, doesn't it? Just
you needed to like pin them and stuff to like actually keep them in place.
Yeah.
And like plastic's lighter, and with the way that it's all changed, because they could make them bigger models out of it, the detail's just better. Like they couldn't get that level of detail with the metal cast.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be strong enough, it would break.
Yeah, these are crazy. I'm just gone down a rabbit hole here. I'm just looking at all these new models.
One of the things that they've done that I don't like is the Death Guard, which is... Oh, this is another thing as well. You know that, like, in 3rd edition, you had... For Chaos Space Marines, it's like you had Berserkers, Plague Marines, Noise Marines, and Thousand Suns.
Oh, yeah.
They were just called that, weren't they? It was like, oh, you have a squad of Plague Marines.
Yeah.
They're now all to do with different legions of the ones that rebelled.
Right.
So Emperor's Children were the Noise Marines, and Wild Eaters were Khorne Berserkers, and Death Guard were Plague Marines, and Thousand Suns were Thousand Suns. But the Death Guard, they redid them 3 years ago,
okay,
I think. And I always thought, because they do Nurgle, and Nurgle was like the decay god.
Yeah.
Like the diseases and all that kind of stuff, miasma and all that stuff. And previously, they were... they looked like zombies. They were like really bloated and...
Yeah,
like,
the
their
decaying,
were
like horrible.
Yeah. The new models look almost comical compared to what they should do. They've got like tentacles coming out of them and stuff, and it's like, that's not the right
aesthetic.
It's not the right thing.
Yeah.
For them. Like, the ones that should have the tentacles and stuff would have been Thousand Suns before they got turned into dust. Because the whole point of them getting turned into dust was because someone was trying to stop them from becoming blob monsters, basically. It's literally the reason why they did it. Like, the whole thing with the Thousand Suns is that they had a defect in their genome or whatever that made them susceptible to mutation.
Right.
So they just mutate and become blobs. Or spawn or whatever. So to try and stop them, some of the sorcerers tried to do a spell, essentially, to stop them from turning into big blobs. And it worked. It's just the fact that everyone was sealed inside their armour and turned to dust inside their armour. So they're just like walking suits of armour. So yeah, they're the ones that should have had the tentacles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not the ones that should look like big bloated zombie monsters.
Yeah, because those like the Plague Marines and stuff, like they looked wicked. Like, I remember, like they looked like they were like disgusting, like models. Like,
yeah, they don't look like that now.
Yeah, it's a bit daft. Like, strange one. Like, because it's very like distinctive, like between those. Is it like 4 kind of? I guess like variations. Like, that's a crap word, but you know what I mean. Like, because the Khorne stuff was like very like demonic.
Yeah, you had 4 gods. So Khorne was violence. There's like it flips between them though. Like, Khorne is violence and murder, but also like gladiatorial combat.
Yeah.
So there's like a respect, but that's where all of the kind of excuse me, all of the stuff like Blood for the Blood Gods and Throne of Skulls and all that kind of stuff. That's all Khorne. Slanesh is like pleasure, pain, sadism, masochism, excess, addiction, like all that kind of stuff. Tzeentch is like really abstract because it's about like it's difficult to explain Zinch because it's to do with like sorcery and manipulation, and like changing things to do with knowledge,
right,
and things like that. It's way more abstract. It's like a pursuit and thirst for knowledge.
Okay.
Is Zinch, and then Nurgle is death and decay. But the weird, or not death, but decay and disease. I always found the way that they try and explain why people fall into the worship of it weird. Like, I don't understand why someone would fall into the worship of something that is literally disease. But they've made their bed, so they have to kind of lie in it with stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's meant to be supposedly that they can help. It's like to do with hope and things like that. I don't quite get it, but I haven't researched into it enough, probably.
Yeah, it's definitely like the narrative behind the whole thing. It's like you're saying, it's been going for so long now. It's very, like, if nothing else, it's like very impressive that it can still keep this narrative going and bring new elements into it. Because it's even like, obviously you don't play the game or collect it anymore, and neither do I. But the fact that the lore is still interesting to follow, I think, speaks a lot for the kind of.
Yeah, I mean, narratively, it stagnated for a long time, because they didn't want to do anything with it. They wanted to keep it as the status quo, that everyone's fighting each other, and then it was only in the last 5 years that they've actually like moved forward with what's going on a galactic scale, I guess, across the entire universe. Like, things have actually changed,
Right.
So in the last 5 years, Cadia has been destroyed, which was like one of the main Imperial planets. There's now a warp rift that has cut the whole galaxy in two, which means that they can't communicate apart from through various set points and things like that, which for 10 years prior to that, nothing on that level changed. There was like they'd have a campaign like every other year that was about a planet or a system.
Yeah.
And that was kind of about it, and they just kind of left it and kept the status quo going, and that was kind of it. Whereas now it's shit has hit the fan, basically. And they're bringing back major characters that were dead or what were never available prior as a model to play. Yeah, it's just one of the other things as well, as I said about the Chaos God Slaanesh, is that the explanation behind that is because the Eldar got so fucked up that they created it. And then, not intentionally, but when it was born, it basically ate the souls of 95% of the entire population of that race.
We've all done it, mate. Had a big sesh, accidentally made a demonic entity.
And then from that point onwards, that's what that god wants to do, is consume them. And that's a different narrative as well from beforehand, where the Dark Eldar were meant to be Eldar that had gone bad or whatever.
Yeah.
But the way that it reads now is that the Eldar that are around in the 40th millennium that are still Eldar were outcasts and knew something was happening, and then they left. Whereas the Dark Eldar are remnants of what the original kind of empire that they had was.
Right.
In regards to the torture and debauchery and things like that.
Like, something I've just been thinking, like, you mentioned that it stagnated, like, the narrative in the game and that universe was stagnant for quite a while. And then in the last few years, they've really switched it up and like pushed the ideas forward and like shook it up a bit. But I'm speaking completely from outside perspective here, so it could be completely off the mark, but it's just something I want to punt out. Like, I wonder if, obviously on some level it must have been, obviously, like there is a fan base there, and you're probably aware, like, oh, we do need to keep it interesting for the people who are like followed it for so long. But then I wonder if some of it was also, like, I don't know how much crossover is between these two things, but obviously like Dungeons and Dragons, if you look at the last like 5 years, it's really come round into like popular culture again, and like a lot of people now play Dungeons and Dragons. So I wonder if it's like, we need to not compete maybe, but it's like, we need to maintain interest or maybe appeal to like more people and try and bring new people into this game. I don't know, like, because it's, you think like a few years ago, like Dungeons and Dragons was like the ultimate, like, that's such a nerd game and no one talks about it, only people that are into it. But now it's just like, I know people who play it casually and like you'd never think they would.
Yeah, I think Dungeons and Dragons itself got brought back because of Stranger Things.
Oh, that's definitely a big bit of it. Yeah, 100%.
But I mean, they're very different games.
Yeah.
But I think they needed to do something because they started to rupture their fan base somewhat.
Yeah.
With the decisions that they were making, like I mentioned before, was annoying people. And they needed to do something. They couldn't just keep it how it was.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work. It's one of those weird things. They've done so much in like the last 3-4 years, but then at the same time haven't, if that makes sense. It's like things come out in like a flurry and then nothing, and then another bit and then nothing again, and so it's things like destroying Cadia. That happened, like that whole story I think came out in like the space of 6 months, but that was 4 years ago. And nothing to that extent has really happened after that.
Right.
So there was this big galaxy shifting thing that happened over the space of like 6 months to a year. But now we're kind of getting into that middling territory again.
Okay.
Which I guess is slightly unfair for me to say because they're changing edition. So like they're switching to a different set of, well, it's not a different set of rules, it's like a kind of updated set of rules. But I think the focus is moving away towards something else now. Okay. So I guess they need to start thinking about where this next part of the story is going to go. But it's one of the things as well where like people are waiting for the release of kind of another Primark character, because there were 3 released in quite quick succession and then there was nothing. And there's also more Chaos Primarchs than Imperial ones at the moment. So a lot of people were waiting for there to be another Primarch, and there was things leading up to people thinking that there was going to be an announcement, and it kind of led into it, and then nothing.
Right.
It just wasn't happening. So I think people were kind of getting a bit annoyed about that. Like you'd hear, like there'd be references to potential stuff happening in books and stuff, and everyone would get excited about it, and then nothing would happen. But that's kind of how it goes sometimes with things like this.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, especially when it's that thing, isn't it, of like, I guess keeping people invested in it, and then maintaining interest and whatever. But then you kind of got to deliver as well. Like it's a tricky balance, I guess.
If you blow your load in like 12 months, what's everyone going to be doing in another 12 months' time?
Yeah.
So, but then, I mean, I say that they haven't done anything. They released the Sisters of Battle in plastic, which was something, and that was a set of models that hadn't had had never had plastic models. They were all metal.
Right.
And that dates back to when before we were playing.
Yeah.
They were still on the same models, pretty much. So they released them as a fully blown plastic army like last year. So it's not like they're not doing anything. It's just in regards to kind of the pushing the story forward.
Yeah.
There hasn't been anything massively. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. There hasn't been anything that's like pushing the story forward, I guess.
Yeah.
There's been lots of. It feels like pieces being moved into place for something to happen.
Okay.
But it just keeps. It's just they're just rearranging the pieces over and over again.
Right. Okay.
So that's where it kind of feels a bit weird. Because it's like, oh, there might be something that's big that's going to happen, and then it's like, oh no, sorry, like it's not going to be that, and then so I don't know. Like, I guess in summary, it's a very, very expensive game that neither of us play anymore because of how expensive it is, and the fact that it can take like 2-3 hours to play even a small game.
Yeah, it's kind of like similar for same as you actually. Like it fell off for me when I just kind of. Music was the priority, you know, and it's like I could spend 40 quid on some little figures, or I could spend 40 quid on a pedal or guitar strings, or you know, like,
especially back then. Like, I obviously both have gone up in price massively, but I do feel sometimes that kind of your consumables for music may have gone up more than your consumables for models and stuff.
Yeah.
Like when I started, I was buying packs of bass strings for like £10.
Jesus.
They weren't great bass strings, but do you know what I mean?
Even so, like, you struggle to do that now. Like, yeah, it's not cheap, but I think it's a pretty much. It's not a casual hobby, I guess. That's probably the best way to describe it, if you are invested in it.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's one of the things as well where I'm not going to probably get into it. Like, they've started doing things where like you can have less models and play with less models. I've forgotten the name of the game that it is, though, which is annoying. Kill Team, that's it.
Oh, okay.
And it's kind of a similar premise to what I said about Inquisitor, except it's not as in-depth and you don't play with the bigger models. You just buy it's like with one squad of models, basically.
Okay.
Instead of having a whole army.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to do it in a kind of casual setting, I guess that would be the best way to do it. Or you said about Mordheim, but they don't do Mordheim anymore because Warhammer Fantasy is dead.
Is the whole thing actually gone then?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
It's called Age of Sigmar now.
Oh.
So there was a cataclysmic event at the end of Warhammer Fantasy that destroyed the entire planet.
Amazing. A cataclysmic event. Amazing.
Basically, Chaos won.
Nice.
And it destroyed the entire Warhammer Fantasy planet.
Fucking hell.
And then it became Age of Sigmar.
That's nuts.
But I think Necromunda has a current edition. But again, when you start getting out of the main games, it becomes more difficult to find people to play them.
Yeah. I mean,
like Warhammer 40k is such a massive cash cow for them that it's like they'll just focus all of their energy on that.
No, big time. I mean, speaking of cataclysmic events for Warhammer Fantasy, mine was when we moved house, I found all my dwarves and threw them in the bin.
Oh no!
I was just like, realistically, what am I going to do with these? You know, like I was like, I can't be. I was like, this is so old now because I know obviously the models are old. I don't know what's what. I was like, there's no point in me trying to sell them because I don't know what's what. I don't know what it's worth. Like I can't be asked. So yeah, it just got chucked, unfortunately.
I've got several boxes in a shed of 3rd edition Space Marine stuff that I have no idea what its worth is at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's the old style Rhino chassis as well, so none of it's available for sale anymore.
No.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like, who would buy it? I don't know. Because you can play 30k, which is a different game now as well.
Right.
Which is pre or during the Horus Heresy. Which has older style armor and vehicles. So I guess someone could buy it for that, but again, it's not 40k, so the amount of people that are playing it is like 5% of the fan base. So
yeah,
it's a difficult sale.
Kind of what I mean. It's just like, for me, it's like, well, I've not really lost anything here. Like, do you know what I mean?
No, if you found them after several years and you weren't using them, it's kind of like, well, am I going to do anything with them? What's the worth? It was like when I sold the iMac for less than what I wanted, but at the same time, it's still better than it ending up in a skip.
Exactly.
So you kind of cut your losses and move on with it.
Yeah. I don't even know anyone who plays it or anything like that, because I would have just given them away. But
yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing for me as well, is that like, it's all well and good me saying, "Oh, I'll get back into it." It's like, well, who the fuck am I going to play with?
Yeah.
Like, I know someone that plays it in Weston-super-Mare, and I know someone that plays it in Norwich.
Oh.
Both places that are over 100 miles away from where I am. So, am I going to travel 100 miles to go play a game? No. So, I'll just keep my money in my pocket.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, we can appreciate the lore and whatever, but the actual game, that boat has sailed for both of us. I think I can confidently say.
My brain can't handle it, I'll be honest. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, I need to consult this table so that I can work out whether or not I can shoot you.
Yeah. I just don't have the time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're saying, the games take hours. It's like, I just don't. When have I got like 4 hours? Well, I'm going to play some Warhammer. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's going to be one of those things where if I try and learn it again, I'll forget something else that's probably more important. Like, I'll forget how to do my taxes.
Forget clutch control. Oh.
Yeah. I've ended up in a ditch because I worked out and I worked out the firing pattern of a bolter.
AA recovery truck comes. Oh, we've done this, mate. Yeah, but look at these sick Marines that I've got.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing as well. Like, the fact that the whole universe is so overpowered that the basic. The gun that is used by every Space Marine is essentially a rocket-powered grenade launcher.
Yeah.
Because they're not bullets, they're explosives. But they're not. So, yeah, it's an RPG, a rapid-fire RPG, which is the standard gun that they use. Or the Necron guns that dismantle you on a molecular level.
Super soakers.
Yeah. Just acid-filled super soakers.
Ah.
The other thing as well, with like thinking about the kind of stupid stuff with it, is just like their most famous weapon is a chainsword.
Yeah.
I think most people know what a chainsword is. If they saw it, they'd probably recognise it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
it's like, it's a weapon that just will not work at all.
No.
There's no way. And have you ever read the description of one? Like what the teeth are made out of?
No.
So I'm trying to remember the actual terminology, but I think it's like adamantium sharpened to like a monofilament edge or something, where it's one atom thick on the tip.
Fuck's sake.
So that it can... Apparently it's meant to be able to cut through molecules when it cuts through you. And it's like, yeah, that's funny. And like, when you read it, it's like, that's very sci-fi.
Yeah.
But when you actually think about the actual science behind it, it's like, absolutely moronic.
Yeah, you can't do that.
It never, ever work.
Subatomic engineering for a fucking silly weapon.
One of the like good ones, and I can't remember if I think it's Eldar or Dark Eldar. They've got a gun that shoots like a wire, and it wraps around you and tightens up and just cuts you like into pieces.
Hey, it's creative, you know.
But again, it doesn't mess around.
No. There was they did a video game for PS2 and it was actually really good. It was like an FPS game.
Fire Warrior.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it actually.
Yeah, it's. I think the only thing that put me off it. I played it.
Yeah.
I didn't. I think I got about 2/3 of the way through. Just the way that the bolters fired annoyed me.
Right.
Because they're meant to be rapid fire weapons, but it behaved like as if it was like a rocket launcher.
Right.
Like it would just fire like once, and it would be like poof.
Yeah.
And instead of it being got like an assault rifle essentially, which is what it was meant to be. I think that's what other ones have there been? Well, the Dawn of War series, but I'd never really played RTS games. So Dawn of War's like the most popular internationally of the Warhammer video games, which I guess makes sense because it's the most similar to actually playing Warhammer.
Yeah.
Because you have an army and you make it move and you shoot basically.
Oh, actually, it had a PS1 Warhammer game that was a bit like, I guess, like what old Warcraft was like. It was like Warhammer Shadow of the Horned Rat.
Was that the Warhammer Fantasy?
Yeah. So it was like Skaven and stuff, but that was a pretty solid. That was like a RTS game, and it's solid actually. That was like mid-90s.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't play that one, but something similar. I think I rented it.
Yeah.
I played Space Hulk, which apparently was originally for the Amiga, but I played it on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Which was one of those interesting ones where it was really low res until it went into a certain like quick time event sequence.
Okay.
So it was, you play a Terminator and you're on a Space Hulk and you're killing Gene Stealers, that's basically the whole game. But if a Gene Stealer got too close to you, it would go into like a more high res graphic.
Right.
Which is where you had to either parry or punch or do whatever to kind of beat it.
Diff it up.
Yeah. Which was a kind of interesting thing where it was low quality graphics of the time until it got to that point, and then it was like, oh, it's much better graphics all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's another thing as well that was never around. Gene Stealer cults are a thing now.
Okay.
So did you what were Gene Stealers in 3rd edition? Were they just like an infiltrator for Tyranids?
I think so, yeah. They weren't anything too crazy.
So now they can go onto planets on their own and impregnate humans with an ovulator, which is in their tongue. And the offspring will be part Gene Stealer.
Right.
And there's a weird thing with it where 3 generations down, the Gene Stealer part becomes less and less obvious.
Right.
So they become more and more human. But then the 4th one is a pure Gene Stealer. But there's a whole other army that is just that, where it's humanoids and Gene Stealers. And it's specifically for like uprisings on planets.
Okay.
And it's meant to be that these are the forerunners for the Hive fleets. So they kind of, the cults and everything are meant to soften up the defences for the other tyrannies to come in.
Right, okay.
And then when the biomass vats and the pools and stuff that they put everything in for it to be absorbed off the planet, all of the the cults just go in it and then get dissolved and absorbed into the Hive ship.
Fucking hell. I'm just looking. These are pretty cool. Like, there's some mental ideas in it. Like, definitely. Like, yeah.
I guess that's their take on because they always said, or there was always things of, Tyranids are just a mixture of xenomorphs and bugs from Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
So I guess that's their take on the kind of gestation thing, but obviously it's different. It's not chest bursters or anything like that. It's a more subtle, I guess, would be the way to put it.
Yeah.
With the fact that they're giving birth to creatures, so on and so forth. But supposedly part of it is that when they're injected with the stuff that ends up with them giving birth, is that it changes the mothering instinct to accept it, even though it looks disfigured.
Right.
Because obviously if you crap out a baby that looks like an alien, you're not going to be best pleased.
I don't know, mate. I've seen some alien-looking babies in my time.
Alien potato babies.
Oh, God. Awful, isn't it? Oh. This will be the last podcast because we're going to be cancelled. No.
I think everyone agrees that babies can look like potatoes.
Yeah, true. Well, that's one thing, but me saying I've seen babies that look like aliens, that might upset some people.
We haven't said if it's their baby.
Yeah, true.
If they think that it's about their baby, then they think their baby looks like an alien.
There's more about them than it does me.
Yeah, exactly. What's the thing? What, as people have been sharing it, what is it? Art's meant to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, or something.
Yeah.
Just saying that your baby looks like an alien is to just disturb the comfortable.
It's an art piece. I guess probably it's probably a good time to wrap it up. All things considered.
Yeah, for sure.
We've waxed lyrical about Warhammer for a good while.
Yeah, bloody nerds. It's one of those things as well where, even now when I try and explain to someone that I don't play the game but I'm interested in the lore, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
It's but have you researched? It's but then it's that thing of you fall into the trap of, oh yeah, but if you look into it, it has this and this. It's I just sound like an overbearing fucking chin beard.
Chin beard.
I said it again. Neck beard.
That's the thing now. Chin beard.
Chin beard. I said that for bloody 3 or 4 episodes ago.
Yeah. It's come up a few times. I think we did it in one of the first ones as well.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, just more of a thing of you say it and then you try and explain it, and because of the amount of stuff that there is, it's I could be here for many an hour.
Yeah.
Trying to explain this, and the person's still going to be none the wiser and just think that you're massively overbearing. It's trying to condense the entire plot line of the MCU into a half an hour.
Yeah, we've actually been watching those recently, because there's loads of them I've not seen, and we've been watching them in the the order they came out and whatever, and yeah, some of it I was what? It's easy to follow, but when you don't know those bits, because you've missed loads of the film, it's just okay, that's insane.
Yeah, it's if you try and explain Hydra without any pretext.
Yeah.
People aren't gonna get it,
because that's the thing. I hadn't watched so many of the films that now we're going through it. I was what? I was I didn't even clock this. Yeah, and could you that whole arc was like 8 years or something.
Oh, well, when did Iron Man 1 come out?
Might have been 2012, so maybe it was like 7 years. Let me just double check.
I thought it was older than that.
Oh, maybe Iron Man 1. Fucking hell, 2008.
No, I was going to say 07, so okay. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, so yeah, like 11 years, that whole arc.
Yeah. I think they tried to do some stuff before then but Iron Man 1 is the first official MCU film.
Yeah. Yeah, because Spider-Man and stuff came out before that.
Yeah, that wasn't Marvel though, that was Sony.
Oh yeah, shit.
Same with Fantastic Four was Fox, and the X-Men films were Fox.
Yeah.
Which is why there's no X-Men in any of the Avengers. But that was the whole thing with Sony and Spider-Man and Venom and all that stuff. That's why Spider-Man's not in the Venom film.
No.
So, yeah, it's all stupid shit between various studios. It's what annoyed me about Watchmen. There's like an uber long cut of Watchmen.
Oh, maybe you telling me about it. It's like director's cut.
Yeah, so there's a director's cut, but then there's an ultimate cut, which is where the animated stuff for Tales of the Black Freighter is interwoven in the film.
Right.
Which breaks up the film really well. Like I downloaded it when it was first available because you couldn't buy it in Europe. And the reason you couldn't buy it in Europe was because the Europe distribution was done by a different studio than the American distribution. And the ultimate cut was only available on that studio's distribution, which meant it was only available in America.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I would watch it. You'd have to have it in 2 parts because it's over 3 hours long. It's mental, like how long the film is with everything in it, but it helps break up the plot.
Yeah.
So it makes the pacing better, in my opinion. But it wasn't available. I think it might be available now, but I haven't checked. I just know that for the couple years after the DVD release came out, and then they said about the ultimate cut, it was only going to be available in America, and it was because the studios were fighting over the rights. It's just
it's
dumb.
It's a bit messy, a lot of that, isn't it? Like even with the last like the Spider-Man stuff and whatever going on at the moment. I think they've resolved it now, but that's the thing. I just like I'm not clued up with like film studios and stuff. I'm pretty bollocks when it comes to films and stuff. I'll be honest. Like I'm rubbish with actors. I'm rubbish with actresses. There's loads of classic films I haven't seen that people would absolutely crucify me for not having seen. Like I like movies, but it's always been like a secondary thing to me. Like obviously, like I totally get why some people like absolutely love cinema, and like it is an art form or whatever. But you know what I mean. For some people, it's like a massive passion. It's just been something I've never really like. I just enjoy films on a casual level, I guess.
But yeah, but the people that are doing that, you'll get it because you have that relationship with music. Yeah,
100%. That's the thing for me. It's like it's music for me. Like, and I understand why for some people it's cinema.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I just lose track of stuff. I'm just like, what? Like, and yeah, like studio disputes and that side of it, and like especially when it comes to like the intellectual properties of the superhero films and stuff, I just get kind of a bit lost in it. But lost with it, I should say.
It's, if you look into it, it's a bit of a sorry state that basically Marvel they had to sell all of their IPs to stay afloat in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Because comics had just died.
Oh, yeah.
So they sold all of their IPs off, which is why the first... I don't know if you've ever seen a clip of the first Captain America film, the one from the 90s.
Oh, no.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Like proper crap.
Crap.
And that was because they sold the IP to a company. I don't know who made it, but they just jettisoned loads of their IP.
Wow.
In order to get some cash.
Yeah.
To keep themselves afloat. Which is why there's such a big gap between Marvel Studios' first film, which is Blade, and them doing MCU, because they spent several years buying their IPs back.
Yeah.
And obviously they didn't buy all of them back, which is why you have the issues with X-Men and Spider-Man and Deadpool and stuff like that. But yeah, they're getting them back eventually, but I mean, they're part of the House of Mouse, so they've got unlimited budget to get whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. Should we sell them the rights to our music? Get some of those sweet Disney dollars.
Could you imagine?
Cough. That'd be
endorsed by Disney.
Just to get a song on a soundtrack would just be hilariously unfitting.
Might as well be sponsored by Ford as well. Just get two Jew-hating fascist created corporations to endorse anti-fascist band.
Oh God. Oh, there's been some hot takes in this. Alien babies and fascists.
Everyone knows that they were both fascists. Well, I've said to you before, haven't I, about the documents that got released about the planned coup between various don't know what you call them. When people own large corporations.
Oh,
it's not like
conglomerates.
It's not the right word, but we'll use it. Like various conglomerates or like moguls and things like that. Basically, they were gonna have a coup against the American government in the mid-30s and put in a puppet National Socialist government.
Fucking hell.
In order to support Hitler, essentially.
Yeah.
And Ford and Disney were both involved.
That's mental, actually.
There was a few others as well, but those are the two that are kind of ingrained into my psyche about it. But I won't say any other ones because I don't know for certain, and someone will call me up on it potentially. But there was various other people that owned large companies in America that were incredibly scared of Jewish power, essentially.
Right.
And wanted to take the money and the resources away from the Jews in America, basically. And they thought that by putting in a National Socialist government they didn't say it was a puppet, but the way that you see it is like, oh, they're just going to agree with everything that Germany says, essentially. Yeah, so they were very close to that. But it was the same as the thing as well with I don't know when it was, 17th century, I want to say, like 1600s, maybe early 1700s. There was a vote for kind of the national language of the colonies, and it was mainly between English and German, and it was closer than you would imagine.
Yeah.
Between the two, because there was a large number of Dutch and Germanic immigrants at the time. I think at that point it still would have been New Amsterdam rather than New York.
Yeah.
And if it had gone to be German speaking rather than English speaking, then potentially they would have had more sidings with the Kaiser in the First World War, rather than the English speaking countries or country being England. So yeah, it's weird how those things play out.
Damn. That's
random subjective history lesson for you, because I don't have anything in front of me to corroborate what I'm saying. I'm just kind of remembering-ish stuff that I've read.
Time for a spin-off show, Brit History. Brit History.
Yeah, Brit History. where I try and remember scientific facts, historical facts without having anything in front of me to be able to actually corroborate what I'm saying, which is always good. There'll be someone who turned around and is like, everything you said is bullshit, and I'll just be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. Whatever. Like, here's the peer-reviewed article that disputes what you say. I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine.
So we've covered, today we've covered guitar pedals, Warhammer, alien babies, fascist corporations, and little known, whatever history. It's been some broad strokes.
Historical facts. Yeah.
Don't say.
Cool,
we don't give you the goods.
Yeah, I guess we should wrap it up there.
So yeah, like, obviously, again, cheers everyone who listens to us weekly or dipping in and out. Like, anyone who's maybe just picked up on us recently is always appreciated. You can check us out on all our socials at the BritHick. We'll be back again next week, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.